Coming to this week's post-cabinet press conference, I think a lot has happened since I last addressed you in the media, not so? Which was literally only a few days ago. So I thought it important after today's cabinet meeting to use the opportunity to address you all. It's going to be a brief post-cabinet press conference because, as I'm sure you all are aware, I am required in a short while elsewhere as well. But of course, I will address questions that you all pose to me as best as I can. So thank you all very much for being here this afternoon. We have just completed the second cabinet meeting under my chairmanship as Prime Minister for this week, having only been sworn in a couple of days ago. And it went very well as expected. And I see that I have some colleagues here who I'm sure would be able to attest to the cabinet meeting afterwards. There are three matters that I'd like to raise with you all and inform the population about here today. The first is my first piece of correspondence from the Leader of the Opposition, which I received yesterday, not surprisingly after it was already being reported in the media, was a request to me as the Prime Minister by the Leader of the Opposition for us to have observers here. We all know now that the general election date is the 28th of April. I read the Leader of the Opposition's letter, as I'm sure many may have, and I smiled because my predecessor, Prime Minister Rowley, had already initiated the process, and he had had conversations, as you do, and then you follow up with correspondence. So it was on the 10th of December 2024, in anticipation of us going into an election year, the previous Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley, wrote to the SG, the Secretary General of CARICOM, and requested that parliamentary elections, so that's the 10th of December 2024, are due to be held in Trinidad and Tobago in 2025, and consequently he takes this opportunity to extend an invitation to CARICOM to deploy a mission to Trinidad and Tobago to observe the electoral process. There was a response, a positive response to Dr. Rowley's letter from CARICOM, the Secretary General, on the 13th of January 2025, saying that they're fully prepared to undertake the necessary administrative arrangements for the deployment of a CARICOM election observation team to Trinidad and Tobago whenever they receive further information regarding the scheduling of elections. Of course, elections have now been called, and I can tell you that a diplomatic note went on the 19th of March to the CARICOM Secretariat informing officially that elections are due in Trinidad and Tobago on April the 28th, and saying that we would welcome the CARICOM observers to this election. I have seen that the Leader of the Opposition has put very spurious challenges to the body that is CARICOM. I want to state very firmly here from this platform, on behalf of Trinidad and Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago is a member of CARICOM. We are not only a proud member of CARICOM, but we will continue to be at the forefront of the defense of CARICOM. CARICOM has a very important role to play in case the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago don't appreciate how important. Together as a CARICOM region, we are much stronger in this global environment that is a rapidly changing and volatile environment. You would have seen the benefits and the strength of Trinidad and Tobago's leadership at CARICOM in particular in the past 9 years, and I intend to continue being part of that leadership with the CARICOM voice out there globally. So we will not disrespect CARICOM in any manner. The Leader of the Opposition and all citizens are entitled to their opinions. They're entitled to free speech. But you would recall, it would do us well to recall Trinidad and Tobago, what had happened by 2014, 2015, with the disrespect from Trinidad and Tobago to our CARICOM brothers and sisters, and how Trinidad and Tobago is then perceived as a member of CARICOM by 2015. And it is this government that not only restored that relationship with CARICOM, countries such as Jamaica and others, but have built a leadership platform. And I intend to continue that, to strengthen it. I spent quite a while on the telephone this morning with Prime Minister Motley, and we were sharing ideas ahead of a Heads of CARICOM meeting that will be convened tomorrow afternoon, and gave her the assurance that Trinidad and Tobago will continue being at the front of the batting lineup, standing firm at the crease in support of CARICOM. So for a leader of the opposition who wants to attack the body CARICOM and say that they can't carry out their electoral observation duties on the basis of a spurious allegation that an Attorney General, and is now a former Attorney General's professional wife who has decades of professionalism and experience under her belt, that is now an Assistant Secretary General at the CARICOM, and I'm referring to former Attorney General Reginald Armour, and the fact that his wife now works at CARICOM, is completely ridiculous, but not surprising. So we have invited CARICOM, and CARICOM is on its way for April 28th. Before I saw the letter from the Leader of the Opposition, I had also dispatched an official letter as the Prime Minister to the Right Honourable Baroness Patricia Scotland, King's Counsel, Commonwealth Secretary General, requesting that the Commonwealth Secretariat provide observers as well to Trinidad and Tobago's election. Of course, that is the body of the Commonwealth with a lot of international expertise. I have also today instructed the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, Dr. Brown, to prepare for my dispatch a letter to the Carter Centre, asking that the Carter Centre also assist in the observation of our elections. You see, I don't want there to be any manner of distraction, because I can tell you from the election that is coming very soon, I can tell you that we as the government, and certainly as a party, intend to have free and fair elections as we've always had, and as the EBC has always carried out in Trinidad and Tobago. But we learn from our mistakes, we learn from history, meaning that we see every time a particular party loses an election in Trinidad, they look for every excuse as to why it is they've lost, and they run to the courts, etc. We have absolutely nothing to hide in Trinidad and Tobago. I am proud as a citizen that we've always had free and fair elections. So to take away that, we have invited those three bodies. We will invite the Carter Centre as well to send people here to come and observe free and fair elections. The second thing I'd like to talk about today is to let you all know the SSA. We have had for a time now acting director of the SSA, someone who came back at very short notice in March of last year, Ambassador Philip Spencer, giving service as the acting director of the SSA. Today, the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago has approved a decision, has taken a decision, and we've approved the Mr. Arthur Barrington as being the permanent director of the SSA. Ambassador Philip Spencer's tenure ends on the 1st of April, so today Cabinet has taken a decision that Mr. Arthur Barrington, a former head of Special Branch, he left as a senior superintendent, will be the next director of the SSA from the 1st of April. Of course, this immediately would provide a level of stability that is needed going forward after what has taken place at the SSA. Mr. Barrington has a wealth of experience, not only in the policing side, but as the former head of Special Branch and intelligence, understands operations, etc. So I believe, and the Cabinet believes, he will be a very appropriate director of the SSA going forward. The last point that I have to raise with you all today is that I have asked the Minister of Finance, who is here, Senator Vishnu Danbal, our Minister of Finance, to please invite, and I intend to dispatch the necessary correspondence as Prime Minister as well. Next week, Tuesday, at 2:30, I have invited the Central Bank and the Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm hoping all the CEOs, the Chief Executive Officers of the banks that operate in Trinidad and Tobago, to meet with myself, the Minister of Finance, right here at Whitehall, because I intend to address immediately, and it will happen on Tuesday next week, the issue of foreign exchange and Forex and allocation of Forex as one of the first items on my list of priorities. That meeting will be next week, Tuesday, right here at Whitehall at 2:30 p.m. And I also intend to invite you, the members of the media, to witness the start of that meeting. As I meet with them, I'll then ask, as happens all over the world, that you leave the meeting. And after that meeting, you all will then be told in a transparent manner what it is was the outcome of that meeting. But I intend to raise at that meeting this issue of foreign exchange and how it is that we can address the foreign exchange. The fact is that we have less foreign exchange than we used to. That is the fact of life. However, how do we look at the allocation of the foreign exchange that is available to us amongst our citizens of Trinidad and Tobago? So those are the three issues that I thought it important to come to Post Cabinet this week and to address the population on, you the members of the media through. I will take a few questions at this stage, as I'm certain you all have some questions. Brigadier General Ambassador Philip Spencer, there has been approval by the new administration in Washington, D.C., the new American administration under President Trump, for him to return as our ambassador in Washington, D.C. So I'm happy that he's able to go up there as soon as possible.
You addressed three issues today, but there are a lot of people in the population probably disappointed because they were hoping that you would have addressed a fourth issue and more in depth, and that is the issue of bullying. I know you sent out a statement yesterday, but there's a lot of speculation and unanswered questions. And persons really want you to get to the source of it, seeing that you were involved in the situation 33 years ago. I surely weren't there, a lot of us weren't there. But we want you to get to the issue of what happened there, because a lot of persons are accusing you of being a bully. And you sent out the issue about bullying, and then a lot of persons saying, now, you sent out a statement, but you did not apologize for the situation. So do you think your statement was sufficient? And can you give us a bit more details about that situation?
So thank you very much for that question. It's interesting how you framed your question. I came here to address matters that were decided by cabinet, matters that were addressed by the cabinet. What you've raised with me is a personal matter. People are always going to have different opinions. Yesterday, I put out, I think, a very clear statement. There are always people who are going to interpret things very differently. As I said in my statement yesterday, that was a very traumatic incident that took place 33 years ago, which is quite a while ago. When I was a teenager, the other individual who was involved was also a teenager at the time. As I said in my statement yesterday, I am not going to do anything that would affect at this stage, because I don't think it is a conversation you get into details about he say, this one say, different people having recollections, etc. I don't think there's any benefit to that. If the issue coming out of it that I accept is one of bullying, then I have absolutely no problem standing here today and saying that as a Prime Minister and as an individual at my stage of life, 50 years old, I am sorry for any child who had had to endure bullying, which, as we now know, is an issue. With respect to that specific issue, I've already addressed it, and I am not going to do anything to affect persons' recollection of the incident or to water down, for want of a better word, their feelings, how they feel, because it was a traumatic incident. Not only for Mr. Khan, but for me and for many other people as we're seeing coming out of it. What I gave is a commitment that I will use this office to address the issue of bullying. And I reinforce that commitment today. I also understand that incidents that people would go through as children growing up in society, anywhere in the world, would then later on influence their decisions in life, would later on influence how their experiences in life are, including me. The defining moments in your life. So that is my position with respect to it. It was a very, very unfortunate, a very traumatic incident. But at this stage, I am not going to go back 33 years ago to deal with that. I can deal with the present. I can't change the past. I don't know if anyone can change the past. It is a serious issue, and I intend to take it up. In fact, I raised it yesterday with the religious heads when we gathered to speak about education. It is something we need to do. And today, 33 years later, the issue of cyberbullying is an issue that I intend to take up. And that is where I'd like the population to focus on as well. Because the issue of cyberbullying is very real. Me now as an adult, me as a person who've come into public life, like many others, I'm subject to cyberbullying. I'm subject to a lot of bullying by some on the other side. There's a particular phrase that they like to use that is not a complimentary phrase. In fact, it's a race whistle, some will say. But this is the society we live in. And I can tell you, I am one. If I have to take responsibility for anything, including mistakes, I will be the first person to take responsibility. I have no intention of shirking from that. So I stand here without fear, and I am apologizing to every single child who has had to endure bullying. And how do we address it now, and how do we move forward as a society, in particular in our education system? That's where my focus is going to be. Okay? Please identify yourself.
Shirlan Ramsabag from the Trinidad Express.
Yes.
Do you have a plan on how you intend to tackle bullying in schools?
That is a matter that has to be a level of consultation. We have to, one of the things we were discussing yesterday, you have to have the experts. I am no psychological expert. I want the experts to come in because it's real. We have incidents taking place in our society, especially with social media, not only here, but in other areas of the world, that sometimes lead to fatality, sometimes lead to young people taking their lives. We can't stand by as a society and responsible people and do nothing about it. So 2 weeks ago, I believe, I talked about us looking at legislation to deal with social media. I saw all manner of things as usual. And you always look at the ones who make the most noise. They may be the ones with the most guilt. But we can't sit back as a society and allow people through being anonymous, be it bots or be it whoever, to bully people, and especially our young children. So it is going to be a period of consultation. We're going to find the right professionals to lead us, to guide us. It's going to include the legislative side. And these are some of the things that I intend to prioritize and focus on for us in Trinidad and Tobago to address. One second, one at a time.
That there is a perception and a concern from some elements of the population that bullying at the political level, that the PNM and others in the parliament.
Don't say and others in the parliament, readdress it frontally. Okay. I was looking at my television last night and saw the leader of the opposition, who's the political leader of the UNC, spend a whole Monday night talking about Stuart Young this and Stuart Young that. And I don't go and say those types of things.
You aren't responsible for anybody else.
Correct.
Or any other party's behavior. So I'm focusing here. That's why I said others, but I'm focusing on the PNM and the belief that there are people in the PNM, including ministers in the government, who are themselves have been accused of behavior that is certainly bullying. Yeah. And public servants and others who have dealt with ministers have said that they are bullied. So what are you going to do to change not just the perception, but the behavior of elements in the cabinet who may find themselves, facing a similar allegation?
Thank you very much for that opportunity. I always try to look for the positives. That's the first thing. And I always try to find solutions and ways forward. Right now, my responsibility as Prime Minister and what has been consuming me 26 hours of a 24-hour day is how do I build Trinidad and Tobago on the platform we have? What is I have a lot of ideas for the new chapter. So the positive that has come out of an incident that took place 33 years ago is that it has brought to the forefront of conversation this concept of bullying. And what I invite all of Trinidad and Tobago to do now, including colleagues, including members of the cabinet, members of all political parties, is let's be a little bit more sensitive. Let us understand everyone is a human being that we're dealing with. And how do we, because you're only in control of yourself at the end of the day, how do we as individuals, through our actions and our words, be a bit more sensitive on how it may affect people? But you see, it is a younger generation that I'm particularly concerned about, because it is incidents as to the younger people and people growing up that can then create the rest of their life through experiences. Okay, Jewel?
I was just wondering, because you mentioned the opposition and so on, but in terms of this and other issues, Parliament is dissolved, right, for the election and whatnot. There's no opportunity for legislative intervention on this or any other matter until the election. So I'm wondering whether it be this or other issues, what can the population expect from your administration, given the fact that apart from governmental decisions like by cabinet, but there's no opportunity for legislative interventions of any kind until the election.
Thank you very much. I took a decision as the Prime Minister to call an election the day after I was sworn in. And that is because I, as well as the government that I lead and the party that I'm the chairman of, have a lot of things that we want to do as we write the next chapter. I've talked about unification, personally for me, to unify the country and bring the country on board to build on what we have. I don't want the distraction whilst governing. So I took that decision, called an election at the earliest possible, literally the earliest possible date. So the country, the population now have an opportunity in the next few weeks to listen to both sides and others and to make a decision about who is going to take Trinidad and Tobago forward from the 29th of April. You will certainly hear from me the things that I would like the population to give me the mandate to do to move us in the direction that I think we can move to fulfill our potential. So whilst we don't have parliament, we don't have, you will hear of the areas of legislation. And that is what I'm inviting the population. Listen very carefully. Listen to the tones, listen to the types of conversations, listen to the content. Because that is what will have to make your mind up. Who is best suited to take Trinidad and Tobago forward? So you will hear about those things as we go forward.
One of the things I'm wondering about, because you mentioned, for example, the person who had been in charge of the SSA going back to Washington and so on. At what point do you expect to have communications with either President Trump or any direct representative of his on the issue of supply of natural gas from Venezuela? I ask this because yesterday there was media reporting out of the U.S. of potential new sanctions on Venezuela by the U.S. administration presently over the issue of illegal migrants and Venezuela accepting them or not, and the impact this could have on something that this administration has been pursuing, or certainly the one led by Dr. Rowley and now by you, the issue of the supply of natural gas from Venezuela.
Jules, I have stood at this very platform. The last time I stood here at a post-cabinet, and I assured Trinidad and Tobago we will continue working. I would personally continue working. Fighting is the language I use for Trinidad and Tobago. That has continued, and very, very shortly, I will be able to provide some additional information to Trinidad and Tobago with respect to those lines. I made a call just before coming down here, and I think it would be a little premature for me to say anything at this stage. But we continue to do work. Things are very, very fluid. And in the not too distant future, I will talk to you all about some of the things that we are doing and what is expected.
General one, are you apologizing specifically to Imran Khan? And if not, do you think that will affect you at the polls?
I am not sure what will or will not affect me at the polls. What I have done is I've presented myself to the population. I have addressed the Imran Khan issue very frontally and very carefully yesterday. I have added an addendum to that today. I understand what your position is and what it is that you're trying to push towards. I have apologized to everyone who was bullied, been bullied, every child who has been bullied. And that is as far as I will go at this stage. Thank you.
Now that you spoke with religious leaders yesterday, there's a concern coming from the Orishan Spiritual Baptists that they were not invited to that meeting. Could you clear that
Well,
up?
I would hope that you as a member of the media would have been able to. But what it was is the denominational boards, the leaders of persons who are stakeholders in education. So absolutely I will engage them, but they weren't in that category that we met with yesterday. So when I said it's religious leaders, it is about education. The release from the office of the Prime Minister was very, very clear as to why it was they were there, etc.
Let's write the next chapter. The next chapter. It seems to be a theme, or we're wondering if that is the theme for your election campaign. Could you kind of clarify that or expand on that, rather, your priority for the election campaign?
Communication is all about putting out a message and people getting the message. You've gotten the message, so thank you for proving my point. Yes, we're going to write the next chapter. And as I just told Jewel, there is going to be a lot of conversation, a lot of action taking place over the next few weeks, because in addition to us making sure the government continues to function as it is and stably, we also have to talk to the population about why we are the best choice. Please.
Just two quick questions, right? I think what she was trying to get at is a yes or a no with regard to the Imran Khan. You know, people want to know, is it...
I know exactly what she was trying to get at, and I know exactly what you are trying to do, and I've addressed it already.
Okay. No,
Thank you very much.
Last
You have last question, right? You're holding people to the last question,
I have
last
to read it to you
question.
so I could be clear on it, right? Last month, the Office of the Attorney General indicated that Cabinet had agreed to remove public order provision for the SOE regulations, right? This is after an activist filed a case claiming it was unconstitutional. Was this ever done? You want to clarity on
So
that?
today, the Cabinet approved and confirmed that, and the necessary regulations will be sent out within the next 24 hours. So the answer is yes.
You, Prime Minister.
Okay. The UK visa issue has already, Minister Brown, out of the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, has told you all, and it continues to be the issue. We have been engaged with the UK government at different levels. I am hoping to have a conversation at a higher level based on the office that I now hold, and we're going to be making that request. We will continue to do all that we can to have that issue addressed. We don't believe, as I said to you literally a few hours ago, that I said that we don't think it's justified, but we recognize it is a sovereign issue that every country is entitled to take. Ria.
Settling in, and have you been receiving advice from Dr. Rowley?
Oh, I've settled in. I have settled in very fine, hit the ground running. And have I been receiving advice from Dr. Rowley? Dr. Rowley is not holding my hand. Dr. Rowley is someone that I've worked very closely with for 9.5 years that I have tremendous respect for. But Dr. Rowley has made it clear not only to me, but I think to the population. I go on home to retire, and I am going home to enjoy my retirement. You said last question. Paula.
Thank you. Just one clarification. The Shorter Baptists do actually have a school. So I think in that case, that might be why they're feeling...
But are they part of the Concordat, which forms...
What are your thoughts on the Concordat, and what do you think about the Mahakama?
So let me answer your proposition to me first of all, just to make sure there's no lack of clarity. Yesterday's meeting, as it was very clearly said, is for the denominational schools, and it is those that are part of the Concordat. All right? So it is absolutely nothing meant or no disrespect at the highest level to the spiritual Baptists. And I am looking forward to engaging them. In fact, on Saturday, I am hosting as the Prime Minister, the spiritual Baptists, and quite looking forward to it. With respect to the questions around the Concordat, that is why I wanted to meet with them. That is why I wanted to get their understanding. I wanted to understand what are the difficulties, what are the rules. Because before you jump out and say, this is going to be the policy, etc., I wanted to have that consultation to understand it. Okay, last question.
On a note, as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, what message do you have for your political adversaries with regards to campaigning until the election date?
You're asking me that as the Prime Minister?
as the Prime Minister.
Lead by example. Thank you all very Ria, last one.
Prime Minister
Could
Ria
you-
got
could
an
you
extra
give
one.
us
That's
your-
all.
She didn't say it was her last question.
Could you just give, because a lot of people have asked, could you give us the thinking behind the calling of the election one day after your appointment?
Ria, I addressed that at the start. A prime minister has to take a decision. The decision was taken. See you all at the polls on the 28th of April. Thank you all very, very much. Much appreciated.
This is TTT. Live for local.
Welcome. Thank you so much for being here inside the Now Morning Show. Today is Thursday, the 20th day of March 2025. I'm Rokas. Welcome to it. I am alongside this morning the one and only Miss Natasha Lake. She's making her great return this morning. Good morning to you, Tash.
Good morning.